Chair Schmidt, you may begin.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Happy New Year and welcome to the January 10th City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that the Planning Commission meeting is being held using Zoom webinar format so that you will see that the planning commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments to the meeting. Please raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of email comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or an applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so that we can have more clear communication, simulating the experience we would have if we were meeting in person. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 2, roll call. The record should note that all members of our commissioners are present at the meeting this evening. So, moving on. Approval of minutes. We have meeting minutes to review and approve this evening from the November 8th, 2021 regular Planning Commission meeting and the December 13th, 2021 regular Planning Commission meeting. Any comments, changes, or discussions regarding the meeting minutes at this time, or are any commissioners needing to were any commissioners missing during those meetings? No? Okay. Then do we have a motion? Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I sent in some revisions. I saw the revised minutes that Ruben sent out earlier today. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as revised for November 8th and December 13th, 2021.
I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Commissioner Loftus, or Vice Chair Loftus, rather. And are we ready for a vote?
Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus.
Aye.
And Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. Moving on, approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes this evening?
Yes, we do have item 8A 1556 Cypress Avenue. That has been continued at the request of the applicant and property owner. So that'll be rescheduled to a future meeting date. No other changes from staff.
Great, thank you. Do we have any recusals this evening from any of the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'll be recused on item 7B, 1025 and 1029 Cappuccino Avenue, as I live within 500 feet of that property.
And Mr. Chair, I'll be recused from 7A. I live within 500 feet of 1534 Hoover.
Okay. So that seems to me like we're going to have to do the consent broken up into 3. Thank you very much.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So then can I get a motion then on item 7A 1534 Howard Avenue?
Chair Schmidt, we did skip over the public comment non-agenda, I believe.
Oh, you're right, we did. I can go back to that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so back to item number 5. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes or 2 minutes each. A timer will sound at the end of the time. I may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda? I am not seeing any hands. Ruben, do we have any emails or other correspondence?
No emails through public comment, and I don't see any hands raised either.
Fabulous. Then with that, we'll move on to the next. Study items, we don't have any this evening. And then back to the consent calendar that I was anxious to do. Number 7A, 1534 Hoover Avenue. Do we have a motion for consent?
I will move to approve 1556 Cypress Avenue. I'm sorry. 1534 Hoover Avenue.
And I'll second that.
Perfect. We have a motion by Commissioner Say and a second by Commissioner Camerado. Any further discussion? No, let's vote.
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
and Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5010. Okay, moving on to item 7B, 1025 and 1029 Cappuccino Avenue. Can I get a motion for that one?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve item 7B.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Camerado. Any further discussion? No, can we vote?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5010. And now on to item 7C, 1457 El Camino Real. Can I get a motion for that?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve item 7C.
I'll second that.
Okay. And we have a motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Say. Can we get a vote?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6000. That concludes the consent calendar. Now moving on to regular action items. Item 8A, 1556 Cypress Avenue has been postponed to a future meeting. Moving on to 8B, 1 Adrian Court. Oops. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask you that you turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Sure, give me 1 second. I'm going to promote the applicants to panelists, and then I'll give you a brief summary of the report.
Perfect.
All right, this is an application for design review amendment for changes to a previously approved 265-unit mixed-use development project at 1 Adrian Court, zoned RRMU. Staff prepared an FYI for Planning Commission review at your meeting on December 13th of 2021, where the applicant was requesting approval of several proposed changes to the project. At that time, the commission called this FYI up for review and further discussion. Staff would note that of the changes proposed, the commission only noted a concern with the proposed security gates at the public plaza and publicly accessible park, as described in your staff report. The applicant submitted a detailed letter and associated exhibits dated November 30th, explaining the proposed changes. The developer and project architect are in attendance and will be reviewing those details with you shortly. Suggested findings for the design review amendment are found on pages 5 and 6 of your staff report. Before the applicants come forward to make their presentation, are there any questions of staff?
Yes, Vice Chair Loftus.
Ruben, one question that I was the one who called this up, and I remember when I called it up that there was some comment about looking into, the staff would try to look into some public spaces in the city and how they're treated after hours. And I'm wondering if you guys had a chance to do that. Are there any public spaces in the city that are not just closed, but locked up at night?
You know, we checked with our parks director. Parks hours are pretty much sun up to sundown. We did not in detail talk about if any of them are fully enclosed. The ones I can think of, like Washington Park, Cuernavaca Park, those are all pretty much open. They have perimeter fencing, but they aren't, you know, fully enclosed and locked at night. So I'm sure while the Parks Department in some cases would like to have them secured more appropriately, it's just not possible just because of the size of the parks. And I don't think they anticipate doing that in the future for any of the smaller parks.
And so this, as I recall, this public open space, I hadn't realized that it was considered a park and therefore under Parks and Rec. But this public open space was probably put forward as with a view towards getting some development bonus activity, right? And so I know that we've had several of these now. Are there any other of those spaces that are proposed to be locked? I don't remember any.
Right. Yeah. So this was part of one of the community benefits that the project took advantage of. The only other one that we have that's similar to this would be at 30 Ingold Road. And that project hasn't gotten to the point where they're submitting for a permit yet. So I don't think they've fully thought through that park just yet. So far, we haven't heard that they would like to secure it. However, that developer also expressed some concern about the security of the spaces now while these new projects are being built, until there's more projects built in the area where folks feel a bit more comfortable and safe being outside in that area. This one here on Adrian Road, this would be the first one. So I think this is why, to a certain degree, they're expressing some concern about safety for its residents.
So do we have any general sense of crime in this neighborhood? Or so you can get a sense where I'm going to go, and I just wanted to know if we have any information about, you know, actual crime, not presumed crime, and you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had occasion a couple of years ago, to have a discussion with a Burlingame police officer who did tell me that they get a lot of calls at Burlingame Plaza, and the way she put it was, it lights up at night and it's like attracting, you know, moths or something, and people come over from BART and from the train station and hang out at Burlingame Plaza. But I've never actually seen evidence of that, or never really seen evidence of a lot of the kinds of activity I think that are trying to be prevented. So do we have any sense of that?
We could probably get some more information from our police division if we ask them to look into that. I mean, we don't have that information at our disposal right at this moment. I do know that even while this particular site sat waiting for its building permits to get through and demo to get through. The police division did express some concern about folks using that site, camping out at the site, trespassing, even tapping into the water that was at the site while it was vacant. So I can't, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is crime or potential for crime in the area, but certainly there's some activity there while there are no residents living in the area.
Okay, well, okay. I'll quit asking questions that we don't really have the answers for right now. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions of staff before we move on? Okay, then I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Hello, my name is Adam Meyer. I'm with Carmel Partners. I have a few things to say. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire commission for taking the time to review our request for 1 Adrian Court. Happy New Year to everybody. My name is Adam Meyer. My role at Carmel is to oversee this project in its entirety. I'm joined this evening by Lisa Fife on Carmel's development team and Brenna Weaver, principal of BDE, the architect of record for this project. We are extremely excited about the entitled project we recently purchased. Construction has already started over a month ago, and we're even more excited about the transformation of the rezoned North Rollins neighborhood, in which 1 Adrian will be the first multifamily project delivered. It is important to remind ourselves we're at the beginning of this neighborhood's transformation. Since we closed on the project roughly 3 months ago, we have been graffitied, vandalized, stripped of copper and other valuable metals, and broken into countless of times, and brought up earlier, also tapped into utilities. There continues to be campers and transients that reside at or around the property. And until we see change, which we hope will occur over time, our project is in need of additional security measures to ensure, 1, our residents and their families feel comfortable coming to and from and residing in their homes. And 2, the public and our residents are excited to join this newly added half-acre park to the city, without fear of their kids finding remnants left by encampments. The goal here is to not limit access whatsoever. Rather, it is to ensure a good and safe experience when the areas are actually open to the public. In order to achieve this, we believe these gates, designed with thoughtfulness for when both open and close, need to be included in this project. This will truly help set the precedent of acceptable behavior at both the plaza and the park. And these gates will encourage positive behavior to not loiter, steal, or vandalize. Additionally, we have discussed the security gates in detail with the Parks Department. Margaret Glomstad and Bob Disco took no issue with them, understanding it was Carmel's responsibility to open and close the gates for the hours set by the Parks Department, which is currently dawn to dusk. At this time, I'd like to pass this presentation off to Brenna so she can take a deeper dive into the design components of the security gates.
Great, thanks, Adam. Ruben, are you able to share your screen or shall I share mine?
No, I'll have to do it. Let me just put that up here real quick for you.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you so much. And if you could go ahead and just jump to the next slide. I'm going to walk through a few of the design elements of how we are incorporating this gate into our project. And so I'm going to start off by talking about the public plaza that's along Adrian Court. You can see, not able to annotate, but if you look on the lower left-hand side, you see the key plan and a pink box indicating the plaza location. And so in our design, we've shown 2 views. Here's the daytime view, whereas Adam mentioned the gates will be opened, and the nighttime view where the gates are closed. And so the main crux of this design is that we're incorporating these sculptural elements, 2 sculptural elements into the plaza. And these are monoliths that are going to be clad in a corten looking tile. And this tile is the same material that we're using on the wall of the plaza. And so the goal is that we're creating these sculptural elements that hide the gate, but at the same time is tying into the slightly industrial feel. You can see in this view the bridge that we have spanning between the two buildings that's made from steel and metal. And so we're trying to incorporate that same look into this plaza and help those gates disappear a little bit. And we are using bifold gates that will fold up and will be hidden behind these sculptural elements. So if you go to the next page, please. You can see a plan here. On the left-hand side is the original plan, and on the right-hand side is our proposed plan. And you can see as the note is pointing to, exactly, thank you. Those are the sculpture elements that I mentioned. And you can see that they're in an I shape so that the gates, when they're folded up, they're hidden behind those monoliths. And you can see that we have the gate divided into a few sections. On the right-hand side, we have a double gate that allows tenants entry after hours. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual gate material. We're proposing a perforated metal gate. The exact pattern hasn't been determined, but on the left, you can see some proposed ideas of the aesthetic of the gate. We do not want to go with just simple vertical pickets, kind of like you see in the lower right-hand side. That lower image is meant to show you guys how these gates are working, but we don't want to use those vertical pickets because I don't think they'd be aesthetically pleasing. We feel like a perforated metal would be more appropriate and fit into the design of the project. And also, I think, kind of like I was saying in the last image, we've designed these structural monoliths to hide the gates, which we think will be an improvement. If we can go on to the next slide, please. So moving on to the park, we are incorporating the same concept here that we're using on the plaza. You can see that, again, we have two sculptural elements clad in the same corten-like tile. And again, those are in an I shaped so that we can hide the gates in between them. And here we have a little bit different scenario because we need to allow vehicle access to the park because we have a PUE, a public utility easement, back in the park. So if you go to the next page, please, we're going to look at a plan view. And you can see that we have a dashed line indicating the width that we need for our vehicle access. So we're providing one large gate to allow for access through, as well as a gate that we're going to need for egress. But in terms of the look and feel, these gates will be exactly the same as at the plaza, with the corten-like tile on the sculptural elements and the perforated metal panel as the gates. And that is the design of the gates. We're open to any questions.
Sorry about that. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Loftus.
So yeah, a series of questions. So I guess first, one simple thing: how tall are these gates? 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet?
Yes. So the gates themselves are approximately 6 feet tall. On the plaza, you can see we've shown those sculptural elements as slightly taller at approximately 8 feet or so.
Okay, and you don't have any concern that someone, if they wanted to get over those gates, would just get over those gates?
That's a good question. I think that's something we'll have to study a bit more.
I think the answer to that reality is, Mr. Loftus, you can only keep honest people honest. If someone wants to break in, we're not putting razor wire up there, right? Electrified. So, all you can do is try and stop the majority, right? If somebody really wants to do it, whether it's 6 foot or 8 feet, I don't think it makes a difference,
Well, that's sort of, you're getting right at my point. You can only, so, where does this stop is my question. So do you think that you would have the same problems on the site that you're having now, if this were fully populated? What makes you think that?
I guess this place was fully populated, there would be no.
If there were
security issue.
if there were people living there and cars coming and going and people coming and going in and out, do you think that that park is going to, that the what you described to us was, vandalism and break-ins, and what makes you think that that would continue once this is not a vacant site? Does everyone else in that neighborhood have this problem?
I think, I'm not sure there are other parks that anybody's presiding over there. This is the first park over here that's going to be open to the public. And I do think that it takes more than one building to transform a neighborhood. I think over time, the neighborhood will transform and more stuff will turn into multifamily or bioscience, where you have more activation during the week, open during the day, and then even more in the afternoons when you have more apartments that are open. But our one property won't change that. So what I'm concerned about is there are so many that are parking. There are so many trailers and wagons that are parking there, transients that walk by, and when they see a park open that's open during the day and night, they're going to sleep there. And what we're trying to say is that's not okay. And my hope is that,
okay, that's fine. But hang on just a minute. Hang on just a minute. I want to say something.
Sure.
So for me, it is not okay to create a gated community of the public realm. That's a problem for me. That's what it feels like. It feels like it's a gated community. And it feels out of place. And the reason I pulled this up is so we could have a conversation about the public realm. We regulate the design guidelines regulate the architecture. But the public realm, regulating the public realm and managing the public realm is sort of new for us. And we don't do it in a very sophisticated way like San Francisco does. I spent a lot of time over the past several years ago, interfacing with the urban design advisory team of San Francisco when I was doing public spaces up there. And they take the public realm and the urban design very, very seriously. And I want to see us do the same thing here. And I don't want to see a precedent set that anybody who wants to gate a public space can just do it. And so I'm asking these questions. I know I'm responding to you because you feel like it feels to me that you're being defensive. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and I think that what you're describing, the activities you're describing there, or probably have to do with your site being vacant. Is everyone else in the neighborhood suffering the same thing? Is everybody being graffitied?
I'm not sure how many others are being graffitied. We do know that we've seen crime here, and that we think that it's going to take time for this neighborhood to change. I wish we didn't have to put the gates up. I wish we didn't even have to.
Well, I'm not sure you do have to. That's my point.
But I would say that our study, which we have done in depth, is that there are security current concerns here. And we feel like it is appropriate in this instance for us not to close it off to the public. At times they are allowed there. It is open dusk to dawn, dawn to dusk. And we have no intent of preventing people during those times to be there. What we just want to make sure is that we're keeping all the funny business off until there's a precedent, until there's a transformation of this neighborhood, which will happen over time. I didn't mean to come off defensive in any way. In fact, what we're trying to do is we're thinking about how to do it so thoughtfully, both when it's open and closed. How does it feel like it's not jail-like? It doesn't feel like an afterthought, that it's fully integrated with the design of the building. And I think that the design team did a fantastic job coming up with this concept that we think kills so many birds with one stone. And I get that we want to be careful about controlling the public realm. And we're not here to fight you on this, to be honest with you. We think this is the right move. And we'd hope that you guys can understand this, and that we'll ensure whatever agreements we have to make sure that it is clear that what times it has to be open. and that we hope you can appreciate the situation we're in, that we're trying to change a neighborhood that just was rezoned, and we're the first ones to do it. And we're taking the risk. We're the pioneers here. And we're looking for you guys to understand the position that we're putting ourselves in. And we're all trying to do the same thing here, which is
I get that.
to rebuild the neighborhood.
I understand that, but I think you're making all sorts of assumptions that I can't buy. I don't mean to get into comments here, but I would ask you the question: what would keep folks from just moving the graffiti to the outside of the gates? If it's a real problem, is it really achieving anything to move the needles and the whatever else you think might be happening over there and the graffiti to the outside of the gates?
I would say that when someone wants to bring their 2-year-old to go play in the park, they'd rather not see that type of stuff in the park.
Okay, what about is there a difference between the park and the courtyard?
It's 2 separate gates.
No, I know, but would you expect the same activity in the courtyard and in the park?
I believe so, because the plaza is quite big, and the park is also more secluded and big in the back. I don't know how it would be used, but the problem with the plaza is it's got bench, it's got a water fountain, it's got access to the sky bridge above, and so they both matter to us. I don't know how to.
Could you consider treating them differently?
We felt that it made more sense to have the same type of aesthetic treatment on both so that they could tie together.
But my question really is about, let's say you do need to manage the park. Do you really need to manage the courtyard, which is an extension of the public sidewalk?
I think what we're asking for is the flexibility, because we don't know what the future holds. But we know that there's challenges there. And we know that with enough smarts here to know that it's going to take there's a higher crime on this side in Bergame compared to other parts. I mean, you can look it up. We did it when we look at it because how we set rents. It's all right. It's important to us, right? And so my point is, we need the flexibility to be able to operate that. If we're having problems with transients coming in and using that plaza, we need to be able to close it. If they're using the park, or something's going on fishy in the park, and both the city and want us to be able to close it, we have the option to close it. I don't know exactly, Loftus, how it's going to work, but the goal is to use it as needed and to have that flexibility.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Toronis.
Thank you. So question on the gates. Are these manual gates or automatic gates?
It'd be manual gates that
So-
are maintained by building staff.
Somebody from the buildings engineering or maintenance would come out daily and close and open the gates. Is that right?
Correct.
Someone with operations.
Correct.
Okay, another question that I have is just in regards to the hours then. What's our collective understanding, or at least your understanding of, or definition of dawn to dusk? I mean,
sunrise to sundown.
Sunrise to sundown. So, conceivably in winter hours, these gates would be closed sometime 5 to 5:30.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions, the applicant? Okay, I've got a couple. These are some significant gates in this bifolding. Love the look and the design, but I'm concerned about their ability to cantilever and support themselves without a track and a little bit more mechanism. I struggle with this in my own stuff. So I'm wondering how far you guys have gotten to your engineering and how much steel's in there to hold this up and make the cantilever work and not have it rack and be dragging on the ground.
Yeah, so admittedly, I mean, we definitely have not gone through construction details or anything to that degree. We've done some research though with potential manufacturers, We looked at a few different options in terms of having a track versus not having a track. So we think these are feasible. It's one of the reasons we divided the gate up into the number of segments that we did. But to that end, we do still have work to do with our engineers to
Okay.
confirm.
So I would, should you get through us this evening with this vote on this, I would highly encourage that if you're going to run into those troubles, don't then just assume that you can start adding track and doing a bunch of changes to this to value it or lighten it or all that, because you're selling us on, a look right now, which if we're going to agree to it, great. But if it goes vastly different, we want the opportunity to help and provide guidance in what we would like to see in that. So I wouldn't get too far along changing without circling back. I have a question, and it's maybe for the assistant city attorney, is given that this is a park and is regulated by Parks and Rec, is the gate and the timing thing something that we couldn't revisit in a future? I can appreciate Mr. Mayor's point of view on this and being the first to be out there. And yes, I've witnessed the motorhomes and various things out there that he speaks of. So I'm not, I can appreciate that environment right now and being the first. But I could also appreciate the idea that as this neighborhood evolves, it would be nice to not necessarily need the gates and have the ability to revisit that discussion, not necessarily to take them out, but how the operation piece of it.
The question being, could the Parks and Rec department have the control over that? I don't know the exact answer. Planning manager Huron, if you've seen this in the past, it's certainly something we could look into. But I apologize, I would need to do a little more research, come back to the commission with that answer.
I mean, this would be one of the first, that this is a little bit new to the Parks and Rec division as well. I mean, one option is to if you choose to go forward, take a vote to approve the amendment, is to also add a condition perhaps that this comes back to you perhaps a year after the park is open to see how things are going out there, how it's working, whether times need to be adjusted, whether operation of the security gate needs to be adjusted. So that's also an option to take a look at this again in the future. I would say, at least give it 1 year for it to be fully operational once it's in.
We have a parks agreement that we signed with the city. I'm assuming maybe that could be a conduit to make the amendment if needed. I don't know.
Just looking for a way that we can, we can give you some flexibility at this point in time, because I do think putting in the gates in advance and having a choice on how to make it look good is better than I'm having problems and I need to do something now. That never looks good. So I can appreciate that at this point, but I also can appreciate Vice Chair Loftus's point of view of, we in Burlingame would love to have a more open, safe environment than being in lockdown. Okay. It looks like we have a few more hands now that I've stalled. Commissioner Camarado.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe perhaps within that 1 year time frame that we also have some sort of report from the police or some sort of true track of what is actually happening out there, because we're not out there. We can go see, but we want to make sure that if you have transients that are out there, how often are they going out there? Where are they at? What's going on? What kind of things are you finding out there? Is there a police report, or can you guys provide that to Margaret at Parks and Recs? So maybe having some sort of reporting also, Ruben, because I think that 1 year is a great idea, but some sort of understanding of what, if you're going to come back and say, we need to keep it, we still need to keep it, the gates there. Okay, well, I want to know why you're keeping the gates there. I want to have some real facts and not just well, because we occasionally have somebody. Okay, well, if you occasionally have somebody, but it's become a real big problem, I think we should know about it.
Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for taking another bite at the apple, but something came to mind. You know, I sympathize somewhat with Vice Chair Loftus's position in terms of gating the public realm. So my question is, in regards then to the hours of operation, am I correct in assuming then that both the park and the plaza would effectively operate as a public park? In other words, if it's closed dawn to dusk, is it closed on the interior to residents as well? In other words, I mean, will you work to not have these suddenly be private parks and private plaza in the evenings, you know, for the residents?
The park for sure would not be open. It would be closed off to everybody. One of the main entrances into both the buildings
The plaza
is the plaza, and so
operate as an entryway, right?
yeah, it would operate, and in that design, we'd have to maintain like an egress through that gate.
Sure.
So that would operate as a thoroughfare, and I'm not sure a way around it, to be honest with you.
Okay, I can get that, but
Yeah,
you know, you can see where I'm going. You know,
I totally see it.
suddenly, you know,
Yeah.
fire pits start to appear, and you know, those get used after hours. Well, who's using them?
Oh.
Residents. You know,
I would say here we are pretty well amenitized. The podium deck has everything and then some. So I would say there's not a real need to do that. It wouldn't really be advantageous for the project.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any further hands. Did we get all of our questions in for the applicant? Okay, then I think I'm going to go ahead and go then to the public and see if there's anybody who wishes to speak on this item. I see a few hands. Ms. Pfaff?
Hi, sorry about that.
Oh, you're on.
I was just thinking of trying to think of a similar example. It's not quite the same, but we do have that space. I think it's called Public Park or public garden or something, which was built with the Safeway project on top of the corner of Primrose and Howard. Not sure if it was probably some kind of mitigation because that was a huge project, but that gate, I don't know if it's because of COVID or what, but it's pretty much closed all the time now. So, you know, obviously it's easier to leave it closed than open it up, and I just don't know what the arrangements are. And then I was thinking of the Facebook project, which I don't know if that's actually technically their space or public space, but there have been issues with the skateboarders. So it's true. I mean, it's really good to bring it up now, because if this is supposed to be whatever you do here, unfortunately or fortunately, is going to set the trend for whatever comes after. So I just wanted to mention that we did have some examples.
Great, thank you, Ms. Pfaff. Okay, moving on to the next person, Ethan Rebellos, I hope. If you unmute yourself, you're ready to go.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
Thank you. So I would think that crime prevention would be invited to Burlingame. And I would like to think that the BPD would appreciate the support of the private sector taking the initiative to prevent crime. I frankly would appreciate more security where I live at the top of Truesdale. So I sympathize with the developer, and I credit them with taking the initiative to prevent crime. I think it also speaks to the significant housing crisis in the Bay Area. But separately, it's okay to limit park hours. That is something that's okay, and that's something that's done in Burlingame today. And I would support these gates. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands up. So then let's go ahead and close the public hearing and let's move back to the commissioners. So Vice Chair Loftus, you're up.
Yeah, so I could support these. I could support what's being proposed with an understanding that it is for flexibility and not a done deal. What's really, really important to me is that we not just assume that every public space that gets created in the coming, I won't call it a boom of development in Burlingame, but development as it happens over time, that not every public space needs to be shut down. I don't, for example, know how we expect, I don't know exactly what's going to happen at the new city center downtown at the post office. Or would we tolerate gating that in to keep people from hanging out there all night? That would be a bad thing, I think. You know, I understand that Burlingame is, by and large, it's a suburb. I don't like to think of it as a suburb because it feels more small town like to me. But to the degree that we are trying to manage people that we don't want in certain places, it worries me. Because we're right. This is my preference for cities, I guess. Lots of things happen in cities that you might not want, skateboarders, for example. But that's just part of the public realm. That's part of living in communities. And it worries me if we approach the development of Burlingame by locking everything down. I agree with the caller who said it's good to have hours on parks. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is shutting down the public realm, tightly controlling the public realm. I particularly have a problem in this case with the courtyard that is an extension, as I said, of the sidewalk. That's a much different kind of public space than the park is. So even if I could see putting gates up at the park to protect an area that is secluded, even though I think people will go over the gates if they want to sleep there, I have a real problem with it happening at the front door, which is really designed to be an extension of the public sidewalk. And hence it reads more strongly as a part of the public realm. So, I find myself persuaded a little bit. Yeah, we're the first into the neighborhood. We're really concerned. Better do it now than retrofit it later. That makes some sense to me. But my vigor, my passion on this is the kind of conversation that needs to be had now with respect to all new future development. Because if we're doing the right thing, we're managing the public realm carefully, and we're not just doing the suburb thing. We're not just shutting the gates. We're not just building a gated community. That's not a good path in my view. So I could see supporting it to some degree, but this is a really, really important conversation. And I think that the city needs to do a better job of mapping out the future of the public realm, like the Better Streets program in San Francisco. We need some strategy around it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, thank you. I think we need to look at this on a case-by-case basis. I get it for a gate down in this neighborhood. It's near the freeway. It's not a residential area at the moment. So this is the first project there. There's going to be crime there, but there's crime anywhere you've got a high concentration of people and parked cars and whatnot. I think that the design is good. It integrates well into the building. And we do need to control it somehow. That, especially some of these side streets and the industrial areas of Burlingame, down in that area, there are homeless people and there are people living in their cars and in motorhomes and whatnot. And I have friends down there with businesses that have problems with it. So it's going to be something that as Commissioner Loftus says, we do need to have the discussion, but I think that we need to have it on an individual basis. I was going to bring up that plaza that's above the Five Guys on Primrose also. That generally was open, but it was closed from the sunrise to sunset hours. The gate on the parking lot side is now open, but that's to access Keller Williams. They're still discouraging people from going up there, and I believe it was related to COVID. But I hope to see that lifted, because that plaza was actually used by people. And you know what? Yeah, there's kids up there skateboarding and smoking pot and everything, but you're going to get that no matter what. So I think this is a good solution. I'd like to see it revisited in a year or two, because then maybe the gates don't have to be opened and closed at night. But I can support the application for the gates at this point.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tronis?
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Loftus, excuse me, Commissioner Gall sort of took the words out of my mouth. As I've often said, I think we have to look at projects on a project by project or location specific basis. I can sympathize with the city attorney. We don't want to be capricious or arbitrary, but I do think we have to look at the details of the various locations. As I've said before, with this project, it's a pioneer project. And for me, when in doubt, you look to nature. And the pioneer species has to have a certain robustness, if that's a word. If not, I'm taking credit for it right now. It has to have a certain durability and tenacity, in order to survive. And what I would hate to see is to have this project move forward, and then suddenly the areas of our public realm have to be stripped of amenities because of some trespassing that is occurring, outside of the hours of operation for a park. I agree that this area is somewhat remote in its location, and somebody could probably do an algorithm to show where law enforcement tends to gravitate, and fortunately or unfortunately, they don't go where there's not a lot of people, I think. And what's happening out there now, I agree with Commissioner Gall. I've been out there to the tile stores and flooring stores, et cetera, and I see a lot of what appear to be transient visitors, which, okay, need a place to go. And if they can park there long-term, that's great. But if there's behavior occurring that shouldn't be occurring, I think we have to be conscious of that. So, I agree with Vice Chair Loftus also that I'm a little nervous about locking off the public realm. I believe in security through environmental design and doing everything you can to create good design that creates its own security. But in a situation like this, I think we have to take some steps for something that has specific hours, dawn to dusk. That's how our parks are supposed to operate. And in order for this to operate and behave that way, on behalf of these residents that are out there as sort of pioneers for our new neighborhood, I think we have to allow for a detail like this at this location. I can also agree with the idea that this comes back to us after a certain period for review and consideration, if for nothing else, so that we can get a report and an update on what's happening or not happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney, Assistant City Attorney, you've got
Chair
your
Schmidt.
hand up.
Yes, I've just gone through the conditions here, and I wanted to go back to the point that you brought up earlier about perhaps some sort of city regulation. I think the idea of bringing this back in a year is obviously a good one for a report back. I think you also could put a condition in your motion that at least for the publicly accessible park security gate, that those hours are approved by the Parks and Rec Department or the Parks and Rec Director. So at least then we do have the consent of the Parks and Rec Director to make sure that the hours are consistent with what they would want to do, since it is a publicly accessible park and we want to ensure it does not look like a private park. So I just wanted to put that option out there in case the commission wanted to consider it as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you getting that in there. So as the last person with my hand up, I actually really appreciate Vice Chair Loftus's tenacity in this and getting this conversation going, because it would have been really easy just to say yes. I appreciate the design, I appreciate the intent, and I understand that. But I also appreciate his point of view on this. And this is I think it's going to be a conversation not of just tonight, but of many nights coming forward. And this just happens to be the first night. And I would love to be able to take our experience here and not have a terrible experience for the applicant as being the first person, but a successful evolution, which allows us to evolve many more of these projects that we've got coming up that have similar items. You know, we are trying to get more space and not just have wall-to-wall buildings. We are trying to get some open space for people to enjoy, so it does become a residential neighborhood. So we have to be able to treat it well, manage it, and all of that. And I think it's going to be an evolution for us. I think I can support the solution as being attractive and useful in the short term. And I appreciate the assistant city attorney looking into the idea of how we come back and how we can maybe include that in our conditions. And I think we've given the applicant plenty of opportunity, you know, plenty of knowledge of what we would be looking for in the future as we discuss the hours of operations and the use of the gate in the future. And I think this will set us up for future projects that have similar issues. So that's me. So I think at this point, are we ready to make a motion? Somebody have a motion? Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, since I called it up and since we've had the discussion that I think we needed to have, and since I actually like the proposed design, though I'm skeptical of the uses of the proposed design, I do understand the need I understand the perspective of the need to, you know, do something special out here as a pioneer area, you know, near the freeway and et cetera, et cetera. I move that we approve the project with the condition that the applicant come back to us in a year and report on what's actually happened out there. And that the hours of the public park are approved by Parks and Rec, as the assistant city attorney had suggested. What else? Any other conditions? Those are the two I think that have bubbled up here. So I make that motion.
I'll second that. Can we be specific, Vice Chair Loftus, and just say come back within 1 year after occupancy of the project? Unless you said that already. I
didn't say it as well as you did, but that's what I meant to say.
Okay. Okay, so I'll second. And can I make a comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you may, sir.
I think we should just be a little clear on what we're asking our Parks and Rec director if she's going to take the responsibility herself, because knowing her and her tendency towards expediency, I could see her saying, well, dawn to dusk, what do you want me to review? I think specifically we're asking her to look at, you know, what would be the hours, perhaps on a seasonal basis, if there's something specific that we want to dictate, just so that it could be real clear to the applicant and their operations folks that are actually the person that's, you know, daily going out there to close and open those gates, so that they don't have to make too much of a judgment call as to exactly what the hours are that they're supposed to be closing and opening these things. Maybe it's a specific routine that is just identified for the different seasons and changes in time, something like that. I don't know, just that I don't think that's adding to the condition, but it's just trying to give some guidance that maybe staff can help communicate to Parks and Rec for what we're asking them.
You good with that, Ruben?
Yeah, understood. And I believe also that they're going to have to post signage, just like at every park, that indicates hours that the park is closed and open. And we can take a closer look at that signage to make sure it's clear and in that specificity.
Right.
Perfect. Okay, so then it appears to me we have a motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Taronis, and we've discussed it. Can we get to a vote?
Sure. Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by a $708 fee, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Okay, moving on to item 9, design review study. First up, 1516 Bernal Avenue. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review for a new 2-story single unit dwelling and detached garage at 1516 Bernal Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing single unit dwelling and detached garage and build a new 2-story single unit dwelling and detached garage. The total proposed floor area would be 3,420 square feet, which is also the maximum allowed on this lot. There would be a total of 4 bedrooms in the proposed dwelling. 2 off-street parking spaces are required, one of which must be covered. The proposed detached garage would provide 2 covered parking spaces, and an uncovered space is provided in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. At this time, I'd be happy to take questions of staff if you have any.
Great, thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
So if the applicant can raise your hand, that way I can identify you. If not, I can look for your name and bring you in. Okay, let me see if I can find the attendee here. Okay, they should be coming in anytime now. Okay, Azeda, if you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, how are you?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much for your time tonight. It's the first time that I designed some house in the Berlingen. Means that in the Berlingen is new. Means that is the new meeting for me. I'm here. Means that as the planning manager mentioned, that is a 2-story house. We want to demo the existing house and build a new 2-story house with the detached garage. Is that if you have any question, I will be happy that if I can answer your question.
Great, thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. Oh, there we go. Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the raise hand button.
It moved.
Yeah, so one question I have, and maybe there's information on here and I'm just not seeing it. How I'm looking at the front facade. How big, how tall is the door? Is it?
Yeah, the entry door is basically it's a main door is about 9 feet.
9 feet. Okay. And the reason I ask is because it looks like a very, very tall door. And
maybe it's about the perspective is not good, but in the plan is a 9 feet height.
Okay. And how big are all the windows? They all, the 2 windows on the top, how wide are those?
The windows in the second floor or in the first floor?
Well, let's start with the second floor.
Okay, let me check for you. The second floor is about 8 by 5.
So it's 5 feet high and
5
8
feet
feet.
height, yes.
Okay.
And the top of the windows is about 9 feet.
So, okay, the head of the windows at 9 feet. Okay, that's all I need for right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, yeah, I had the same question on the front door, but the window to the right of the front door, there's a rectangle above that. It's not clear to me what that is.
Sorry, which one? I can't get it. In the first floor?
Yeah, in the front elevation on the first floor, the window to the right of the front door.
Oh yeah, you know what happened? This one is about, we have a small porch in the front of the house. That this one is some beam there, means that is a drop in the drop ceiling only in the front porch. It's just, you means that here in the top of the right, yeah, exactly. Here is about the beam here. Yeah, is a beam.
It's a beam.
This one is the wall. You see this red motion. Yeah, this one is the wall. If you see in the plan that the front porch is, we have some front porch that is only the column. I don't want only the column. That's the reason that I have a beam on top of this, in the front. Then it looks like that is about the wall in the. And if you see in the, I think maybe it's a good idea if you see the first page is some 3D views there.
Mm-hmm.
That you can, maybe it's much more.
Yeah, okay, I think I get it. But then that window is shorter than the window to the left of the front door?
No, it's the same. It's the same.
Okay. Okay, and then do the windows have a trim piece around them?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Travis?
Yeah, thank you. So the house is essentially stucco, exterior cement plaster, right? The sidewall.
Yes, it's stucco.
Did you consider the use of any other materials to sort of break down the massing a little bit?
Yeah, actually, you know what's, because we want to put the trim is about the black or gray one. That I think that's the reason. That's only we go with the stucco. But if you have any comment or any advice, for sure we are happy to hear about this one.
Okay, well, I'll withhold comments until we get to the comment period. But my other question is in regards to the windows. You're specifying the Milgard Tuscany vinyl windows, the V400. Have you looked at a specific color for those? Because they come in various different colors.
I think the owner is here, but we think about the dark gray. Am I right, Presa? Because the owner is here, we talk about this one and we choose together.
Hi, this is Presa Tajian. I'm the partner and kind of managing the whole project. Basically, those windows are only for the bathrooms. The rest are aluminum and wood. And we are thinking about, the plan is having kind of, black windows, dark gray.
Dark gray.
Black. Well, the note for the Tuscany Series V400 appears on the front elevation on the windows on either side of the front door. Are you saying that you're only going to use the Milgard vinyl windows at the bathroom spaces?
Yes, only for the bathrooms.
So the other windows would be an aluminum clad wood window?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that's incorrectly noted on the drawings then.
Maybe we have to change this one because we put everything that is about it.
Yeah, but we don't want to use wood windows in the bathrooms. Especially when it's at the shower space.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Vice Chair Loftus?
Oh, no, sorry, my hand should have been lowered.
Left over?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, thanks.
Commissioner Camarado?
Yeah, can you tell me, I'm having a hard time reading it, but what the floor plates are on each of those floors, please?
Sure. For the first floor, it's about 9 feet and 8 inches. And for the second floor is about 9 feet ceiling height.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think my question was along the same line of clarification on the plate heights. When you were designing the plate heights of each floor, did you take a look at the profile of the neighbors to compare how this proposed home relates to the neighbors and the heights of those homes?
Yeah, we will try to match to the neighborhood, especially that we have some 2 new story house in our neighborhood. We will try to give means that look at the neighborhood, and based on the regulation that we have some daylight and the maximum height that we want to try it, especially these days that the people wants to have a more high ceiling in this inside the house, especially in the first floor. We try to keep this one means that match with the neighborhood and just like means that go with the regulation and code.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, then that gets to me. Can you tell me what the columns are made out of on the front? Is that also being done with the plaster?
Yes, with the stucco, yes.
Okay, and have you confirmed the egress windows that you need out of the second floor windows yet?
Sure, yeah, means that I can tell you exactly if you want.
Oh, no, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because I'm not seeing a note, I'm not sure if you know. So I think before you guys come back, make sure that you've clarified that, because some of the windows are, I'm not sure if you have an actual egress window coming out of each of the bedrooms. So that's something confirmed before you come back the next time, because then it'll be on the plans and everybody will know what you're doing.
Yeah, but sorry, can I explain one more thing? Only if you see in the plans, I mentioned all of the egress window in the second floor, in the plan, in the second floor.
Oh, on the second floor plan?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I showed all of the egress window, and I showed the plate height of the house in each bedroom. If you see that, I showed the ceiling height in each room.
Okay. And I'm not really seeing a whole lot of coordination on the landscape plan and the civil plan. You have quite a bit of height change from the sidewalk and the little hill in front of the house and that's also occurring on, well, either side, but there's a lot going on the right side of that driveway, and I'm not really seeing that reflected in the plans. Have you guys, I'm seeing steps and I'm looking at the rendering, and the rendering looks like I'm on a flat meadow of grass, and your site context is way different than that.
Is that if you compare the landscape with the grading and drainage plans? Yes, am I right?
Yes.
Okay, for sure we check it, but I think we try that keep both of them, is that we try to keep both of them as the same, is that match to each other, but definitely we will check one more time. But for the 3D design, if you see the 3D, I don't put the landscape there. Only I show that is the grass, is that the green one, only because I want to show is only about the ground. Not it doesn't mean that I don't show any driver or anything in the 3D design.
Okay.
If you let me, I would like to add something here that about grading drainage. Our design is not finalized yet. We were not asked to finalize the grading drainage design at this point. And after, getting approval at this stage, we're going to work on the detail and fine tune all the designs.
Okay, I understand. And the piece the reason I'm bringing it up at this point, that might seem a little over detailed, but you do have quite a bit of touch point with your neighbors. And in looking at the new driveway, it appears as though the existing wall that holds up the neighbor's entire property is being eliminated for a driveway. And I also recognize that almost every house on this block has a non-conforming side setback on the left, in which the house is only a few feet off of your driveway. And so I'm concerned, and I'm concerned for the neighbors because this is their time to be able to have input, is that you touch that wall, the guy on the right is going to be in your driveway.
Yeah, about that wall, we were asked to remove that wall. Basically, I think we got that comment from one of the departments. I'm not sure which one was that. So we were mandated to remove that wall. I have started communicating with the neighbor about designing that side. The neighbor on the left side, she has already made some changes. She added a kind of short retaining wall under 3 feet. And so we are going to have to have something similar at the right side to make sure. But we need a little bit time for that when the civil engineering team is working on the design of the grading of the site. So we will definitely consider that.
It would be challenging if we approve you guys to move forward tonight to the next approval process, and you come back in 2 weeks and say, I don't have any problems. And if you haven't resolved this wall with the neighbor, you're going to have problems. So I encourage you to, resolve that, because there isn't a side setback. They're right there, right next to you. And so I would be concerned for their foundations as that wall gets disturbed. So it's something that I think needs to be resolved if you're going to cut back and take advantage of that driveway. If you were keeping the driveway as is and the retaining wall as is, then you're not impacting the neighbor from what it is now. But the drawings at this point indicate cutting all that back.
Right. Again, this is what we were asked. Basically, City of Burlingame asked us to remove that wall. So this was one of the comments. So based on the situation we have there, we are gonna have to remove that wall. And we're gonna have to replace that with a similar, but something that works with the whole design of the both houses.
Mr. Chair,
this is something on the one of the tasks that we are going to have to do.
Okay.
Could I interject real quick?
Yes, you may, sir.
Yeah, only because just from familiarity and working with Public Works, I think you might want to verify exactly which wall Public Works was talking about in terms of what needs to be removed. In looking at your survey, the front retaining wall that is over the property line towards the back of the side and on the back of the sidewalk is outside of your property line. So in my experience, typically Public Works, because you're now pulling a building permit, you're scraping the lot, Public Works will require you to remove that wall and get it inboard of the property line. So I believe it's likely that's the wall that Public Works was directing you to relocate. And it may not have been the driveway wall that they were asking you to relocate, because that's fully on your property. So I would just suggest that you revisit that, because as Chair Schmidt is saying, if you in fact take that property line and move it over to your property on the right-hand side, it's going to encroach on probably on the foundation walls of the neighboring house and potentially make your driveway difficult, if not impossible to build, which means that your house can't be where it's located, in which case the design can't move forward. So I would suggest that you revisit that with Public Works to be very clear on what wall they're requiring you to move or relocate. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Kronos. Okay, that is good for my amount of questions. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing and see if any of the attendees on the call wish to speak at this time. If you wish to speak on this one, please raise your hand now. Okay, not seeing any, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and come back to my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Kronos.
Yeah, thank you. So in looking at the plans, you know, what's before us is really just design review. They're the technical aspects that we were just talking about in terms of, you know, the exact nature and detailing for how they grade and build the driveway. So that's something that I think needs to be clarified and resolved. But from a design review standpoint, I'm having a little difficulty with the project. You know, I look, for example, at the exterior palette, and the reason I asked about the materials that are proposed is that it's really just a stucco box with asphalt shingles and dark windows and trim. You know, and because the project, it's at the maximum FAR, it's almost at the maximum height. This to me looks like the type of project that would have been built per the ordinances prior to design review and the design guidelines being put in place back in the 1990s. You know, it's really just a stucco box without any ornament, any charm, or any character. You know, so there, you know, there's nothing in the gable ends, you know, no vents, no corbels, and it's just stucco columns that go up to stucco entablature and then a gutter line, and that's pretty much it. So I'm finding it hard to see how this addresses the design guidelines. You know, and looking at the windows, as Vice Chair Loftus was sort of asking about, I see large windows on the first floor, and then I see even larger windows on the second floor. You know, so there isn't sort of a typical hierarchy that you might see, you know, between first and second floor. You know, I see the Tuscany vinyl windows that are proposed, and the problem with vinyl windows, oftentimes, as we've talked about in the past, is you have large, sort of just funky sticking the stiles and rails. You know, fortunately, they start to come in different colors besides just white now, but even still, the vinyl window has a very clumsy look to them. I'm glad to hear that they're thinking of actually aluminum clad wood windows as the typical windows, but that's not what the plans show. You know, so I think that this is a good candidate for a design review consultant, quite frankly. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Loftus.
I was sort of headed in the same direction, but I hadn't got there as quickly as Commissioner Toronis with regard to design review. I was not looking at the materiality. I was looking at sort of proportion and scale. There's some really funny things going on. The first thing that caught my attention was the front facade. You know, huge door, 9'8" ground floor, 9-foot second floor, huge windows upstairs. It looks, because everything is so big and puffed up, it looks sort of like a dollhouse. It's much more. It lacks some sort of scale for, you know, people scale somehow, and I expected when I looked around the corners that I would see the same thing. Instead, there I see a sort of hodgepodge of windows. There's this building on some of the facades has an opposite problem that many of our projects have. You know, the blank facades. This has got, you know, a window feeding frenzy going on. There's windows everywhere, and they don't seem to be related to each other. And you know, the smaller windows that show up on the second floor on the side, on the left and right elevations seem to make more sense. And then suddenly there's a big window that's inserted, and all the windows seem too close together somehow. There's just, you know, it feels very, maybe utilitarian is the way to put it. You know, I have a room there, therefore I've got a window. And it's just not very well composed. And I couldn't tell whether it was a candidate, whether because there are actually some interesting things going on, I think. So I couldn't tell whether those interesting things could be with a second pass sorted through by the designer, or whether they really needed the help of a design review consultant. But when Commissioner Toronis reframes it for me, the way he reframed it, that it looks like what might have happened before design review, I think he's probably right about this. I think that's an accurate assessment of the problem. It's highly utilitarian. It is a box with windows in it.
Commissioner Camerado.
Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and my first take on it was it just felt like a box on top of a box, and then these windows were just so large. I feel that this is a perfect candidate for design review. I would ask the design review consultant to add some charm to this house, some corbels, it just needs something, not just blank stucco. And large windows. And I think those upper windows need to be much smaller, or or 2 or 3 windows or something to give it some charm. Some corbels would be great. And maybe some mixture of some, I'm not opposed to just having stucco, but I think we need to have some sort of character added to this home in general, some details.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. I believe first of all, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and so I won't repeat any of the comments that were made. I just wanted to add that the designer, I believe, stated at the beginning of her presentation that this is her first project in the city. And so I think this is where the design review consultant can actually be very helpful in familiarizing this designer with some of the design details, styles of homes, some of the aspects of houses that we review in our design review process, and help her to pull together a more complete design and presentation for us to review next time around. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think that the design review process generally helps a candidate get through the process faster and make it work and be more compatible with our neighborhoods. This street is probably one of the most traveled streets in the area, and it's an opportunity to do a really good design, and would love to see that in this neighborhood. I've lived around the corner from here for many, many years. But there's some technical things I'm concerned about. The driveway concerns me. The fact that these properties have a non-conforming side setback concerns me. I think that the garage at the moment is currently shown on the property line, yet we have eaves going over the property line. So I think that there's some real details that need to be thought through on this for it to be approvable, and for us to not then have a bunch of problems downstream with changes for things that didn't get flushed out. So I too think it's a candidate for design review consultant, and would like to see it go there. So that's, I guess I got one more hand here, Vice Chair Loftus.
Well, I was just going to make a motion.
You do that, sir.
And before I do that, I would like to say about the windows and the floor-to-floor height, the plate height on the second floor. I think that if that plate height came down from 9 feet probably to 8, it's much harder to put in very large windows on the second floor with the lower ceiling. And I think those two things are related. So I think I'd like to see him revisit that second floor height. But I move that we refer this project to a design review consultant.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Motion by Vice Chair Loftus, second by Commissioner Say. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Toronis?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. And we're done with that item. Okay, moving on to, let's see, 9B. Yes, 9B, 1785 Sebastian Drive. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, I will note that I received an email from one of the neighbors and I responded back with regards to their comments, but I did not speak with anybody during my visit. Okay, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Chair Schmidt, it looks like we may have additional
Oh,
comments
sorry.
or ex parte
Sorry.
communications.
Thank you.
Run out for a quick second. I did meet with the architect on this project and had a conversation, and then spoke to the neighbor's son that is on the corner of Sebastian and Truesdale.
Great, thank you. Okay, then back to the staff report, please.
All right, this is an application for design review and hillside area construction permit for first and second story addition to an existing single unit dwelling at 1785 Sebastian Drive, zoned R1. With this application, the floor area would increase from 3,295 square feet to 5,203 square feet, where 7,065 square feet is the maximum allowed on this lot. The existing dwelling contains 5 bedrooms, and there is no change in the number of bedrooms with this application. 3 off-street parking spaces are required, 2 of which must be covered. The existing attached garage is considered to provide 1 covered parking space since it measures 16 feet in width, where 18 feet is the minimum for it to be considered a 2-car garage. Therefore, the existing parking is non-conforming in the number, since only 1 covered space is provided where 2 are required for a 5-bedroom dwelling. However, since there is no change to the garage, nor an increase in the number of bedrooms, a parking variance is not required in this case. The subject property is located in the hillside area. Review by the Planning Commission is based on the obstruction of existing distant views of nearby properties. Emphasis should be given to the obstruction of distant views from habitable areas within a dwelling unit. Several letters were received concerning this application, including a letter dated January 5th, signed by several neighbors, a letter from Lena Fu, and an email from C-Track and Jenny Sogamonian. Key Lay, the property owner, also submitted a letter. All commissioners have received this correspondence. In addition, Mr. Enoch Yoon provided several attachments, including photographs, declarations, and a court case transcript regarding previous code enforcement issues on the subject property. These attachments were emailed directly to the commission by Mr. Young. I just want to take a moment to address concerns expressed by several neighbors regarding code enforcement issues at this site. Since 2016, there have been several code enforcement complaints filed against this property by surrounding neighbors. The city's code compliance officer noted that all valid complaints were adequately addressed and all cases have been closed. There are currently no open code enforcement cases on the subject property. Staff would note that it is not the purview of the Planning Commission to review and discuss past and current code enforcement issues or cases. Any code complaints or questions about code enforcement on the site need to be directed to the city's code enforcement division. The focus of this evening's discussion will be limited to the proposed addition and its consistency with design review guidelines and any impacts they may have on distant views. So at this time, I'd be happy to take questions of staff. If not, the applicant is also here in attendance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Say.
Yeah, I just, based on planning manager, her and what you just stated, are we able to, I guess, curtail the comments that may be coming from the public to focus on the items that we are reviewing in tonight's meeting?
Right. Through the chair, I think yes, we would want to make sure that any public comments that come in do focus on the proposed addition and the impacts they feel it may have on their property. Certainly, the public does have their 3 minutes to speak, but we would encourage any comments regarding code enforcement cases not to be made in this public forum, because it's not the purview of the commission to review that at this case or at this tonight. Any concerns that they may have should really be directed to the code enforcement division. So again, we would encourage all public speakers to focus on the proposed addition, on the proposed project. I believe Scott has something to say as well.
Yes, just to follow on to Commissioner Say's note, we can't curtail what the public says. They do have their 3 minutes and they can speak to whatever they would like to. However, the Planning Commission, as Planning Manager Huron noted, should be focused on the design review guidelines and the hillside area permit. However, I just want to make sure we do know that for however long the chair decides the comment should be, those individuals can speak on anything they would like to related to the property.
Okay. Thank
you
you.
for those clarifications.
Okay. With that, then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Hey, happy New Year's, by the way. I really don't have much to add because I really think this is a very straightforward project, except the ongoing or past issue with the neighbors, which I'm not going to discuss. I do want to address one of the neighbor at the rear, stating that we're blocking her view, which is false. Our maximum building height is still 40 feet, approximately 40 feet below her property. So I don't believe there's impossible that we're blocking their view. As far as the privacy, if you look at the site elevation, we really try to have very small windows facing the neighbor, especially on the right, who is the neighbor who wrote the letter and got the neighbors signed the petition. And quite frankly, we are even considering obscure those windows on the right side because there are really just the staircase and bathroom and one of the master bedrooms window, which we also want our privacy. With that said, I'd like to answer any question you may have in regards to the design. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Commissioner Say.
Oh, yes, thank you. James, can you just tell us what the sill height is of the windows on the left elevation, the 3 on the second floor?
Side. Approximately 18 inches.
18-inch sill?
Right.
Is there any consideration possibly to raise those sill heights? You know, one is a game room and one is a bedroom, or 2 of them are in the game room and one is a bedroom window. I think that, like you said, I think the right side has been nicely accommodating of the neighbor to the right. And I'm just wondering if these windows on the left-hand side could be shortened a bit to, for privacy's sake, for the left neighbor.
Absolutely. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Camerata?
Hey, James, can you talk to me just slightly about those front doors and windows on the second floor is that just a small deck, or is it just like a Juliet deck where you can't really go out there?
No, they're the actual balcony. It's because on the second floor, there's view of the San Francisco airport and Bayview. So the owner, it's actually, this house is actually owned by two brothers. So that's why they have two masters bedroom, and they both would love to capture the view of the bay with the balcony type of setting.
And
so those are slider.
They're just sliders. Okay, thanks.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Tronis?
Yeah, thank you, James. I very rarely, if ever, ask this question because it just seems kind of silly sometimes. But is there a particular style that you would call this, or what are you kind of going for here?
Maybe you can tell me. I'm just kidding.
Well, okay. Well, I'm sorry.
We try to be a little more modern.
Okay.
Get away from the existing. God, I don't even know what that style is.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's a difficult question, but here's where I'm coming from. I see sort of these classic pediments at the gables, with the columns, and particularly with the, with the 5 and 12 roof pitch, it just sort of screams of that classical pediment. But then I see sort of the horizontal siding and the stainless steel cable rails. And so I'm trying to be, if it wants to be classic, if it wants to be traditional, if it wants to be contemporary or modern. I'm struggling here interpreting, and I'm just hoping you can share what your thoughts were.
Sort of in between, and perhaps try to be no more modern farmhouse, but
okay.
But with existing windows, they're actually pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
Which we also try to salvage pretty much all the existing window on the first floor.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tough.
Have you done a 3D image of it, or?
No, we haven't.
Okay. It might be helpful for us, at least for me, just to see the materiality as it sort of works its way through the building and
okay,
the iconography. I have another question, but I was going to ask if the property owner was here, one of the property owners were here, but maybe I should ask it of Assistant Attorney Spancel first. My question that I think is sort of within our purview, that is an issue has been raised, and the reason I ask it is when I visited the property on Friday, I was standing in front of the house and a utility van pulled up, and as I was there, parked to the side of the garage in front of the property. And my understanding in projects that we've reviewed in the past, we've had applicants that have asked to provide or to build a parking space next to their garage, not in front of their garage, in order to park an additional car. And so in this instance, while I was there visiting, I honestly saw a van pull up and pull over to the space to the side of the garage, which from my understanding of the ordinances is not allowed. Is it okay can I ask a question in that regard? And because isn't that sort of within our purview?
I mean, I don't think there's harm in asking that, Commissioner Tronis. I mean, there is a home occupation permit that exists at this property that does grant some exceptions to some of the rules that you would normally see.
Okay.
And that's under the purview of the Community Development Director. However, there's no harm in asking. I would just ask that we keep those directions pointed and make sure we're focusing on the design review guidelines.
So my question, James, if not for you, then for the property owner, is there a reason why these utility vans need to be parked off to the side of the garage as opposed to parking in front of the garage like a typical pattern that we see in our neighborhoods?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay,
No,
so
I'm not aware of that.
okay, if that could be something that maybe some information that comes back to us, if and when this comes back for action, you know, I think that that's something that could be addressed, because I mean, the point being is that, you know, my understanding of that ordinance is we're trying to not sort of pave the planet and not trying to keep the front of our houses not looking like a homage to the car and or even looking like a junkyard with cars parked in various places in front of the house. So if you could talk to the applicants and try to get us an answer on that, I'd be curious on that item.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Galt?
Hi, James. Are the fireplaces, are those going to continue to be wood burning fireplaces?
I think, quite frankly, I'm not even sure if so. I think the chimney needs to be extended higher.
Yeah, at least the one.
But yeah, that's something we will fix next go around. If we're going to replace with gas, then we probably could perhaps keep the chimney, or we'll figure it out.
Okay.
On
Yeah,
next go around.
I just wanted to bring that up because that one on the left, if it's going to be a wood burner, is going to need to be extended.
Correct.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one last question. Do we have a dimension from the garage to the property line? Because one of the things that I think the reason some of the parking is happening the way it is I'm not sure that there's clearance in front of the garage to park. James, do you happen to know? I haven't seen it on any of the drawings thus far because it's existing.
Yeah, it's what depends where you measure from the edge of the sidewalk to the garage door. We have about more than 20 feet. But if you measure from the property line to the garage, we probably have about 17, 18.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good for me. Okay, then if we don't have any further questions of the applicant, then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing to the attendees. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. And please keep your comments focused on the planning aspects of what we can review tonight. And we will start with Mr. Young. Okay, you can unmute yourself and there you go.
There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Planning Commission, for just taking the time to review this application and also reviewing our comments. I'll try to keep it short. Regarding the home occupation permits and the B ordinances, it really has created misplaced expectations between the neighbors and the owner of 1785. And I think we're really just trying to seek clarification because right now, I think based on code enforcement's actions, it seems that the impression we are getting is that commercial activity is okay in the zone as long as incidents are minimized, and we're operating under the impression that no commercial activity should be happening to the level that it has been happening in the neighborhood. That said, I'm going to move on and thank the Commissioner Schmid for your response to the email, understanding that we're only restricted to architectural design comments right now. I wanted to bring up that the gray standing seam in the metal roofs doesn't really seem compatible with the neighborhood look and feel. The two balconies on the second floor with the big sliding doors in the front, again, there aren't any other homes in the neighborhood with that type of architectural feature. So it just doesn't really seem to be compatible with the overall feel of the neighborhood. The overall massing of just going from 3,000 to 5,000, you know, we really couldn't tell from the drawings, but we're concerned about blocking the view of the scenery from 1745 Sebastian, as well as possibly causing shading into the yard. We also believe the second story will result in the loss of privacy with the ability of the occupants to overlook into the backyard because of those west side facing windows. I appreciate the architect mentioning that they're going to try to minimize the windows. I'm not sure I quite understand how that will ensure privacy. The fact that there are still windows, even though they're shaded, still gives the occupant a view of the yard. And then finally, you know, again, we're not sure if whether or not with the massing and possibly the changing of the foundation, whether or not that possibly might affect water drainage on the property. I see that there's a chain link fence on the drainage, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. So it might be an existing chain link. We just want to make sure that drainage is being addressed as part of the overall plans. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to our next person, Walter Bankovich. Okay, if you unmute yourself, you're ready to go. Mr. Bankovich?
There we go.
There you go. You're on.
Good. Good. My name is Walter Bankovich, and we live on the corner of Atwater and Rivera. Okay, we have my family has lived here since 1974, so we're among the older neighbors in the area. While our particular view would not be obstructed, but I do understand the concern of other neighbors a little bit to the west of us. My concern would be what the motivation is for this second story. It appears that on the north side of the front side of the structure, there are no windows. Now, maybe I'm seeing that wrong, but if that were the case, I'm wondering with 5 bedrooms, how many more bedrooms do they need? Or are they using this property to enhance their business operations, which personally I object to. We're an R1 neighborhood, and I suspect that the building commission gave a permit for something that did not involve a number of trucks and so on coming and going from the property. I can understand, for example, an accounting firm who might have people coming in and out. That would be one thing, but I think the spirit of the law has been somewhat violated here, in as much as we're seeing trucks and all sorts of material in the backyard. And so it appears to me that the sort of business that is being conducted here may not be appropriate for the neighborhood. And I'm not quite sure that when the permit was granted, the powers that be realized that this sort of activity would be going on. So I submit to the building commission, planning commission, that I believe that this activity should be somewhat curtailed, and maybe they should take their businesses elsewhere to a warehouse or something of that nature. My concern, in conclusion, my concern is what they will actually be using this second story for. Would it be warehousing, or is it in fact really residential living? Thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to our next person, IL Ill or a set of initials. You're next.
I'm bringing each speaker in, but there is a delay in getting them over to a panelist. So
No worries.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hello. Hi, Happy New Year, everyone. My
Thank
name
you.
is Connie, and I apologize, I have to be under video because I have rash on my face. So I live across the street from the house with the proposed expansion. I would like to share my views on the proposal on the potential impacts to me. The proposed expansion is to build a second story with 2 balconies and a big sliding door directly on top of the garage. I feel that this is not architecturally compatible with the neighboring houses and will be an eyesore. I don't see any other houses in the neighborhood that look like the proposed expansion. In addition to the architecture concern, I also have concern with parking space. For most of the houses, 2-car garage along with the driveway are more than sufficient parking space. Currently, there are already 3 to 4 cars, including large trucks and large vans from that house that are parked on the street. With the proposed expansion, I would expect more cars and trucks and vans. This causes safety concerns as cars are driving up and down on the narrow street. Very often with the big cars parked on both sides of the street, people have to drive in the middle of the street, crossing the yellow lines that separate the cars going in opposite directions. This is very dangerous. In fact, I once parked my car on the street overnight and my car's left mirror get damaged by passing cars. So after the expansion, it looks like the house will be 2 times larger than any houses in the neighborhood. There is already commercial traffic currently from the house. With the proposed expansion, their business will expand and traffic will increase. Over time, I'm just concerned that this will transform the quiet, desirable neighborhood into a busy commercial neighborhood just because of this. I also wanted to say that my largest concerns are with privacies and views. So with the elevated height and the 2 balconies in front of the house, they can look right directly into my backyard. And I feel like I would lose my privacy when I'm in the backyard. I spend quite a bit of time during the day in my backyard. And currently in my backyard, I have a nice view to green trees and mountain, and the expansion will probably block my view. I will be looking at large balconies and building instead. I just have one question. For the house expansion, can they expand on the ground floor instead of building another story? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next person, David Newman.
Hey, thank you, Planning Commission, for your time. My name is David Newman, and I am the owner of 3000 Atwater, where I live with my wife and 2 daughters who attend Burlingame Intermediate School. Atwater backs to Sebastian, and I'm 3 houses away from this proposed project. I want to say that I love that Vice Chair Loftus spoke with such passion about the character of the neighborhood earlier in reviewing that big project, and find it offensive that given the conversation about that, as well as the character of Bernal, which again, I love that part of the conversation, that we'd entertain a 5,000-foot monstrosity brought by an architect that can't articulate a design or aesthetic style. We may not have the exact character of Ray Park or Eastern Addition, but we care deeply about our neighborhood. I also liked Vice Chair Loftus's comments about the context of the public realm. I'm not sure if the spaces in front of our homes are considered exactly that, but that is a space that my children travel frequently. And that is one of the nature of my concerns with regards to the project. And again, I'm one of about a dozen residents here. I know there would be more if we had had more than just 6 days to have awareness of the project. I've gotten to know the property quite well for 3 reasons, and I'll tie these to architectural review. First, through friendship with Ann Young, who lives next door, whose house diagonally backs to mine. As an elderly homeowner, she's called me for help when smelling smoke, which we have also smelled from our home, originating from burns in the backyard of 1785. When I visited her, I've encountered the neighbors from this project looking into her yard from their hillside. So I understand the concerns about this home expanding, blocking her sunlight, the views in her yard, especially after decades of raising her family there. This is an elevated location in looking down into her home. Second, I've gotten to know this home via the Ma family that lives 2 doors north of me on Atwater. Due to poorly maintained beehives placed at the top of the hillside, bees regularly are in their yard. I know the view from their yard, and the architect's comments about 40 feet below. The architect should note it's a downhill view to the bay. It's not a straight ahead view into the sky. So the view will be impacted. And lastly, I've gotten to know it from my own 2 daughters. They regularly ride bikes by the property and are forced into the middle of the road because there are regularly at least 5 cars parked in front. So the idea of a variance or an exception to parking, we should remove any grandfathering in of parking on a project of this size. So lastly, I would like to ask the city attorney if the application can be elevated to city council, given planning commission is restricted to addressing design, and there are so many concerns here. We look to you as stewards of our neighborhood. We appreciate your interest in the impact of this planned project with regards to water drainage, parking, views, and safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on, Ann Young. Ms. Young, you are in the meeting. If you unmute yourself, you can begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're good to go.
All right. Happy New Year. My name is Ann Young. I'm senior citizen. I live here for 40 years. And since the labor moved to our next door, a lot of problem. Okay. And especially they love to burn trash at their backyard. I just don't know why, but and I see a lot of activity of business. They are kind of like manufacturing milk tea, and a lot of chemical fume all over my backyard. And usually they burn trash at afternoon, like evening time. But okay, I should not say something like this. Okay, this maybe I address with some other officer, but I really concerned is 2 of my bedroom and 1 bathroom, my window. When they raise the second story like that, it will be my privacy is gone. Okay, so and then the sunlight is gone, and you see the whole street is built by Alpha builder, and they are uniform and harmony. If there's the new building built up, and then it looked very, very awkward in our neighborhood. And our neighborhood is so harmony and lovely, and clean, and we try our best to keep our neighborhood nice, harmony. But this family moved here, and then it caused trouble, and a lot of their truck and cars. Like last year, they have at least 8 cars parked on the street, and their van and their truck always blocked. I can't even put my garbage can outside. Okay, my garbage can put outside, and then because not enough space, so the cans always fell down. They have so many business, car and truck and van. And they park on the street, and they take all my parking space in front. Anything else I need to, yeah, mainly, I don't want like my privacy got invaded. And I still like my neighborhood harmony, nice and quiet. Okay, I know I don't have enough time, and I'm very upset. And thank you. Give me the time to speak up a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We have a couple more. Petra Campos. Okay, I think you're unmuted and can speak. Petra Campos. Okay. I think we've lost her. Oh,
wait,
no, there we go.
I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Thank you so much, commissioners, for allowing me to join the meeting tonight. So you're going to hear similar comments from that my neighbors just proposed as what I'm going to talk about tonight. And unfortunately, I can't see my notes here. But my name is Petra Campos. I live at 2935 Truesdale Drive, so around the corner from the neighbors in question here. And my family and I, we are some of the original residents of the Mills Estates neighborhood. My mother, Charlene, has owned and lived in this property since 1963. I grew up here. I've moved back in with my family along with my 2 kids and husband since 2013. We've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood. For the most part, they've all been fabulous. This proposed project is not one of those that is in characteristic with the neighborhood. And so we have grave concerns about what the neighbors are proposing here. Comments are similar to what you've heard. I believe that the application that they've submitted fails to meet the Planning Commission's criteria. It's not necessary or desirable for this neighborhood, and it will have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Key concerns specifically for my property is that the expansion is out of character with the surrounding homes. This addition will go against the natural topography of Sebastian. It's gonna kind of go scale down and then bump up to 2-story and then down again. So it's gonna be out of character with the neighborhood. The expansion is gross in size. Going to 5,000 feet, it's gonna have direct impacts to multiple neighbors. For us specifically, it will impact our views from our backyard from the backside of our house. It'll impair our ability to see beyond Sebastian, and it'll likely impact sunlight and views from the eastern view area. And then finally, we have so many young children in the neighborhood. I have twin boys who are 8. There are other kids on Sebastian, Atwater, all around the neighborhood. There are so many cars and vans, as you've heard with this project, that we expect that if they increase the size to 5,000, they're going to have more vans and cars. And it really is a hazard to our kids to have so much commercial activity in a residential neighborhood. So that is one serious concern. And then finally, we've talked a lot about just sort of the size and scope of this project increasing by 2,000 square feet, but they're not increasing the bedrooms. So I do wonder, what are they doing with that additional 2,000 feet for this addition? It seems excessive as scope, and again, out of character with the neighborhood and out out of, I think, what seems realistic for, again, a house of this size. Like, do they really need that additional 2,000 feet, or are they going to use it for commercial purposes? So I do urge you to really use your discretionary powers around this. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we have one more. We have Tony. Okay, Tony, you're in. You unmute yourself. You can begin speaking.
Hi, everyone. This is
There you go.
Tony. I'm the owner of the subject property, 1875 Sebastian. So I find it sad that I've been having so much issue with my next door neighbor ever since we moved in, because we went into a fight when we moved in, that she walked into our backyard and our home by herself. So we got into that fight, and ever since then, she's been having a lot of trouble with us. So let me go over that. Everyone has been saying that there's a lot of cars or trucks or deliveries in the house. Yes, there's a lot of deliveries ever since the pandemic. I live in the new generation. I order a lot of stuff from Amazon every day. And that one of my family member is on home dialysis. So he have medical equipment, like a food truck of medical equipment delivering every week from the dialysis company. And as of the parking, my neighbor lives by herself. She have 2 cars. I have a family of 6. I don't find that to be unreasonable to have 4 cars for a family of 6 here. The main reason that we want to do the addition of a second story is because that we have kids, and currently we have 1 children in the house, and we do plan to have more children in the future, and that we want to have more play space and also for the rooms to be bigger. So I'm shocked that my neighbor is forming an ally with other neighbors who've been living here longer than us to do everything she can to be against me, saying that I have all these deliveries. But out of this world, who doesn't have a bunch of deliveries on a daily basis every day? And she complained that we park our car on the street. So I think that's why when Commissioner Torrance came the other day, my dad parked on the side driveway, because she's been calling the police many times that we're parking on the street and it's blocking her view. So that's why we decided to pull the van up into the driveway area. So she's been calling the police office, the fire department many times, including the city compliance officer, Rachel. She came to my house, she looked at what was delivered to my house, and she found that those were medical solutions. And also I was building a home gym during the pandemic. So I have bicycle and treadmill delivering. So every time I have these deliveries, the city will get a complaint that I have all these commercial activities. So I have nothing much to say, but to say that everything I'm doing is legal. And I don't think I need to change my lifestyle to please my neighbor who has been unreasonable throughout these years. And that's why we took the case to the court as an harassment case a year ago. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, that is the end of our raised hands. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'm going to move back to my fellow commissioners.
And Chair Schmidt, there are no other public comment emails received either.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Vice Chair Loftus.
I want to go back to the architecture and sort of take the baton from Commissioner Tronis's questions about style. Because as folks have been talking, I've been looking at the drawings and listening to what everyone is saying, but looking at the drawings again, and there is something a little bit odd about the house. And it has to do, I think, with integration of the the various sides. Maybe part of what one of the reasons that Commissioner Torrance asked this question. The front of the house with the two the matching pair of bedrooms with the sliding doors is frankly the most interesting part of the design. And as you go around the sides, right and left, there seems to be a lack of integration of the design, and maybe caused by what's being saved. I can't really put my finger on it, but it seems very haphazard in a way that Mr. Chu never seems haphazard to me, but it seems a little bit haphazard in its design. And as I looked deeper, there seems to be some continuity problems of horizontal siding that should wrap around the corner, but goes around the corner and turns into apparent stucco. So I would ask I think certainly would want to see what should be seen, unless I'm reading the plans wrong, what should be seen as stucco wrapping a corner or horizontal siding wrapping a corner, because it affects the legibility of the house. I do think there's a problem with the architectural integration, though. It seems that it sort of wanders from one side to another, and is not very tightly bound one side to another. So I think that needs to be looked at some more. And that's sort of my comments. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Torrance.
Yeah, I have similar comments or concerns as Commissioner Loftus. You know, it's a design that really doesn't articulate itself, or it's not self-evident. You know, in looking and trying to understand the architecture relative to the neighborhood. You know, so I think that we do have to consider it in that context. You know, I don't think it's benefiting really by the metal roofing, just in terms of how it pushes itself even further and further away from the architecture of the neighborhood. You know, so I know that the designer James Chu has a lot of talent that could be brought to bear. You know, I don't think it's as simple as just having to work with what's there, because part of the difficulty is the addition, which is all new on the second floor in terms of how it integrates. You know, the one in particular that I would point out, as Vice Chair Loftus was noting, is that there's wood siding on the left side elevation that doesn't continue around to the rear. So it would be changing at a sort of a two-dimensional plane right there. So I think that in itself then creates difficulty for what translates along the whole back of the house, that then turns into another lump that wants to be wood siding to separate itself from the other lumps that are stucco. So, you know, I think it's just it's not communicating well. I think that I hate to use the word style and apply something to it to say that the project has to fit into a certain box, but I just think it's not working well right now and needs another pass. What I'll also say is, while all the while it's somewhat difficult to see exactly what views might be blocked in visiting the property, because it is such a high hillside behind. But nonetheless, I think it's important that story poles be erected for this project, because there are enough properties that are concerned about this project that are not in the immediate vicinity that might have some distant views. And so therefore, I think it's incumbent upon us to require the story poles so that we can see, for example, the neighbor that's over on Truesdale that says that they have views out from their backyard that look over towards the bay that could be blocked by this project. You know, and so I think story poles should be required for this project before it comes back. And I think that the design needs to be revisited by Mr. Chu. Thank you.
Commissioner Camarado.
Yeah, I totally agree with Commissioner Torrance. So that was one of my big things, is we pretty much it seems that on all view homes that come in front of us, we ask for story poles. So I am a big proponent of story poles. I think it'll add a lot to what's going on out there. I also, I'm not opposed to the doors and the balconies on the front, but I just feel that they just look a bit odd, and maybe it's just that there's something going on there that just doesn't fit, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But I do think that some of the design needs to come back. I think 3D, as Commissioner Taronis has mentioned in the past, maybe a 3D rendering and taking it on all sides would be very helpful, just so we could get a real perspective of what it's going to look like. I know that it helps me a lot. And although I love metal roofs, I don't know that this home benefits from a metal roof also, as my fellow commissioners have mentioned. I think I'd like the applicant to possibly look at some other options.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Taronis?
Sorry, just one last comment on the story poles. What I will say for, sort of the public's behalf, if any of them are still listening, because I know they probably stop whenever I start talking, but for future reference, I think it should be noted that we're looking for story poles in regards to the hillside area ordinance and view issues. We don't typically, or we don't look for story poles to help us dictate or mitigate privacy issues. We don't have a privacy ordinance. We have a hillside area ordinance, which specifically references views, not privacy. So just something for the public for when this comes back and when story poles are erected.
Commissioner Camarado?
Yeah, I'd like to also note on that, we've had a lot of discussions as being part of the commission now for a few years about neighbors' concern about the encroachment of views in their backyards. And I think we've all said at one time or another, but people buy a piece of property, they decide to add on to that property. And I think it is up to the neighbors to have conversations about, trying to get along and try to mitigate maybe some privacy issues between themselves. I've had a neighbor who did a frosted stairwell that helped a ton with our privacy in our bedroom. And I asked that neighbors try to work with their own neighbors to mitigate some of this, but we can't, as a planning commission, look at that and say you can't build a home because you're looking into the neighbor of the next door. So I just want to say that this always comes up at almost most planning commission meetings.
Okay. So I have a few things. Story poles. Yes, I agree that we should have them put up, but given the challenges we've had on several projects lately relative to story poles, I would encourage that those neighbors who are still listening, when the story poles go up, they take pictures from the appropriate places to be able to give us some insight, because we really don't get access to all of your homes and all of your key places, given COVID at this point. And so it's left up to me and Google Earth to determine the angle from your backyard and whether I agree with you, whether you have a view corridor. So I think that it's important that you understand that these are from main living areas. These are distant views. They're not uphill views. This is towards the bay. So I know that there are, 7, 8 properties that are overlooking this property. Only a few of these properties probably have any views over this property. Most of them are uphill. So if you're going to send us pictures and be arguing for the view corridor, really understand what it is that the hillside view ordinance protects. And we would love to be able to hear from you so that we can take appropriate action, but it's not going to be a privacy concern or some of the other things that we heard this evening. I think that people need to recognize that these lots up in this area are larger lots. This happens to be one of the larger ones. And larger lots typically afford larger homes. So I don't know that I would go out of my way to say that this is a huge monstrosity, given the size of the lot. I think that the privacy, side to side, there's some opportunities there. The fence on the right side actually looks like it's deteriorating, and, it could benefit from a new fence and a bit of extra effort towards screening landscape, which would help the downstream neighbor on the right of Sebastian. Similarly, the neighbor on the left, there are some trees, there's some proposed trees coming. And I think that the new second story addition is largely going to look at the house, not the backyard. So I think that there's opportunities to solve some of these privacy concerns that the neighbors have with active screening and being considerate with the landscape. As I was listening a little bit more about the concerns on the front elevation, I'm not so convinced that I'm for the balconies and the larger windows there. When you do look at the other houses along that street, yes, there are some second stories and there are windows facing out to the view, but none of those second stories and windows are quite as large as these openings here, looking over everything. So I think there's an opportunity for the architect to maybe refine that. I think the 3D is imperative given how complex the shapes are on this project and the disparate materials. I like a good metal seam roof on a good looking farmhouse design that has a cohesive design to it, but I'm not seeing that here today. So I think that there's opportunity, like others have said, to refine this design and take another, take a good look at it. So those are my comments. Do we have any other comments or a motion? Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was going to make a motion to bring this back on the action calendar when the plans have been revised and story poles have been erected.
Okay, thank you, sir. Vice Chair Loftus, are you participating in that effort, or do you have another comment?
I am. I will second that motion. I was just going to say before I did that, though, that I think it's important that the applicant and designer think carefully about whether to put up the story poles for the proposed design or whether to consider revising the design and then put up story poles. Because I think it could come back still, lacking integration that it needs. The massing and the integration might not be resolved, and you might have a second set of story poles to do. So, but I will second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Do you have any further comment on the motion? Okay, seeing none, can we take a vote?
Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. Okay, moving on to item 9C, 1141 Cortez Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Or any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Excuse me. Can we hear a staff report, please?
This application is for design review. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing one-story house and detached garage to build a new two-story house and detached garage. The total proposed floor area is 3,411 square feet, or 3,420 square feet is the maximum allowed. There will be a total of 5 bedrooms, 3 parking spaces are required, 2 covered spaces are provided in the detached garage, and an uncovered space in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. I'm available for any questions of staff.
Great, thank you. Do you have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
I am Mike Chen, and this is Winnie Wong, my wife. We are long-term early gamers. My daughter was born here. We've been here for over 10 years, and we love the neighborhood. We want to build, I guess you would call it our dream house on Cortez. I don't know if any of you guys have been on Cortez, but I'm assuming you have. We walk that block all the time, and that's where we want to be. And it can walk right to Roosevelt, to our elementary school. It's something we've been thinking about a long time, and we finally tried. We're going for it. I don't know what else to say, but this is our house. I know you guys got a lot of people that are building houses to not live in. We're building this house to live in. So, anything you want to add?
We really love the neighborhood, and we love the character of that area, and we're looking to stay within the character as well. And Tim is our designer and can also help answer all the questions.
Yeah, we love working with Tim.
Thanks. Good evening, Commission. I'll just kind of keep it short and sweet. This is our rendition on a kind of our take on a craftsman. We have great neighbors to work with, as in the architecture, and we're just trying to complement a lot of the newer designs and a few houses that have been there a while. So we have a few things that we still need to work out, but we're looking for your comments and hopefully for a swift approval on the next go around. And we're here for your comments.
Great, thank you, Tim. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Kronos.
Thank you. Well, since you mentioned it, I have to preface my questions by saying that you actually live or are on one of my favorite blocks on one of my favorite streets in the city of Burlingame. I love your hats. Go Roosevelt. You're across the street and next to, honestly, 3 of the finest houses that have ever been built under our design review guidelines. So, that's a high hurdle, and I'm not trying to intimidate. I'm encouraging you and hopefully, steering you towards a great solution. My questions, Tim, are first of all, in regards to the materials.
Yep.
I'm looking at it, and it seems a little odd to me that it's horizontal siding on the ground floor with stucco on the second floor. I mean, a typical pattern, and I don't want to sound dogmatic, but typical pattern I would expect to see would be stucco on the ground floor and horizontal siding above. The stucco being the harder, rougher material, the durable material that simulates stone, et cetera, like olden days, and the finer, more refined material of the horizontal siding up on a second floor. Is it a real conscious decision? Is there something going on that you're thinking of that's driving it this way?
It was something that I thought was a good change, and I do agree with you. Normally you see it the other way. I'll talk to Mike and Winnie about it. We aren't 100% sold on either way. We have a few gable designs that we need to kind of figure out. I would assume you saw there's some different gables shown, that we have to kind of that we need to finish up, but we wanted to kind of get your kind of insight before doing our best and final. So
okay,
we'll take a look at the siding.
Okay, and so the reason I ask is, there's the one, what sort of led me to that curiosity was there's the one bay that's over the front door that appears to have then the horizontal siding on the lower portion of that bay, if I'm reading the front elevation correctly. But then when I look at the proposed right side elevation, that wood siding doesn't continue. And I'm not pointing out I'm not being critical of your drawings. I'm just saying that material doesn't turn on that bay. And so it caused me to wonder, why does that bay have the wood siding on it? Sort of thing. So just to be consistent with the materiality. And I did have the question of the gable treatments, because you got, just the vertical.
We got two of them going on, yeah.
One where the stair is, you got another horizontal work in. Anyway, and then my other question is, am I correct in assuming that what you're showing in the gable ends are those knee braces and some corbels?
Yes.
Okay. So that'll help give it some 3D, give it some depth. Have you done a 3D?
Yeah, we did. I did send it to her over the weekend, so I don't know if it actually got attached.
It just didn't to us then. So then I would encourage you to, to look closely then with the property owners and just really study that the materials, and just see how it plays out. But those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. So I think Commissioner Chirona covered the majority of my questions. I just have one minor one left. On the rear elevation, that one window in the master bedroom that's fairly short, looks like it could be better balanced against the one on the other side. There's the one right in the middle of that rear elevation that looks like it wants to be the same height as the one on the far right, just for better balance. This is minor, but just mentioning that.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I had a question about the window trim. I like what's going on with the the header and the big heavy sides, but they seem awfully light on the bottom where you just have the sill. It seems like it should have some kind of an apron underneath it or something. Have you given that any consideration?
I'll show Mike and Winnie kind of the picture of the apron and sill, and yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that.
Okay. I think that everybody else touched on the other things I had. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
On the gable ends.
Yes.
Other than the, the corbels and stuff, is all that trim on the surface? Is it in plane, or do you have stuff going in front at the rafter ends?
As for the gables, it would all be in plane with the stucco. We will, and I can show a better detail of it once we finalize that.
It would have been my assumption. It's just that when I kind of saw the design going on the two other little gable ends with the diagonal siding, it started to get me thinking, oh, Tim sometimes does some weird things.
That was us kind of thinking outside the box a little bit. Amelia, do you have the 3D by chance?
I can look for it. You can continue.
Yeah, while you're looking, I'll keep going because I got a couple more.
No worries.
So on the front elevation, it seems like we're just a tad out of center with the second floor window, the gable, and the entry door.
I can see that.
Conscious, unconscious?
Could be a drafting error. I will double check with how it all lines up. I'm pretty sure we can get it to line up exactly.
It stuck out as like, why?
Yeah.
And then I looked inside. It's not like the door says, "Ooh, it has to be here."
No, exactly.
The door could be anywhere. So
okay.
Just thought an offer. And then as Commissioner Tronis was talking about the pop out on the front elevation, when I look at the proposed right elevation, I don't see the roof coming out beyond the pop out. So I think you're just missing something there.
Yeah, I'll make.
But otherwise, heading in the right direction. Okay, I'm done. Then let's go ahead and move to the public. See if there's anybody who wishes to speak. If you'd like to speak at this time, please raise your hand. Yes, I see Ms. Pfaff is raising her hand. Okay, you're in, Ms. Pfaff. There you go.
Hi, I'm looking at page A3.1. It's the proposed left elevation, and I don't understand what's happening in the middle there, where it looks like on the left-hand side of the upper gable, it's cutting into the roof cuts into the, I don't know what that is, the gable thing that's coming out. It looks like there's just a mistake. Is that a mistake? And then the roof on the right-hand side of the lower floor, it sort of stops. I'm not understanding the what's coming out and what's receding. What is that?
Amelia, could you put the floor plan up?
Unfortunately, I don't have control of the plans.
For security reasons, we don't put floor plans online.
Okay, or the site plan. Jennifer, I think the first floor juts in there a little bit, and that's what gives you the cut.
No, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the outside. I'm looking at your.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
it's based off of the floor plan though, but you can go to the elevation, Ruben. That would be helpful. There we go. The left side. Yeah.
Yeah. What's happening? Well, I can't indicate it here, but it just looks like it's centered on part, but it's not on part, and it's something in the middle doesn't look right to me, but maybe it's just me.
It was intentional not to be centered. And then number two is the neighbor next door is like a foot away from the property line. And I think the askewness of it is fine, because I think it kind of gives this kind of not quirky, but a little bit more of a modern aspect on it. And it lines up well on the floor plans for that bedroom.
Okay.
Okay. All good, Ms. Pfaff? Yep, appears that way. Okay, then we're done with the public comment. I will close public comment and come back to the commissioners. Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a nice project. It feels like another iteration will get it there to me. I do want to say that I had the same feeling that Commissioner Turones had, that the stucco seemed like a more natural fit at the bottom. Earthy stuff has more sort of visual gravity, and I think that's what's going on. So we've taken the heavy stuff and put it up top, even though we know it's not really heavy, but it looks heavier. So I think it would be worth looking into flipping that. Two other recurring themes of mine. I have real concerns about the large stairway window on the property line. I think that's a bad trend in Burlingame design right now, frankly, because it will, down the road, it will be a problem for the neighbor next door when a new house gets built. And the other thing I just want to mention is the trend that I see more and more are the huge light fixtures outside. I want to make sure that those don't contribute to light pollution. So if you can just tend to those, but I think it's going to be a nice project, personally.
Great. Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice project, and I ask that, that we pay very close attention to the details, and that anyone who, that your builder pays very close attention to the details. We have some beautiful architectural styles on this particular street and this particular home. So I ask that you be very cautious and make sure it fits the plans. Whatever we're putting on the plans is being built.
Great. Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments. I think that the detailing just needs to be brought together a little bit more to make it a more cohesive design. And I'm glad that Commissioner Toronis brought up the house to the right and the two across the street. Because I was standing there today in the middle of the street looking at those, and they both have some really nice features at their eaves and at their rafter tails, and their barge rafters are carved and they look really custom, whereas I think a lot of this looks more just like more of a production house. I mean, I think there's an attempt at some of the custom stuff, but I don't think it's there yet. So I think the details need to be worked out. I didn't realize that at left elevation, as Jennifer Pfaff had pointed out, but yeah, that bay looks odd because one roof chops into it and the other one falls 2 feet short of it. So I think there needs to be something done there too. But it's going to come around, but I think it needs another pass for sure.
Great, thank you. I don't have anything new to add that others haven't already, so I'm good. So if nobody has anything else to go, do we have a motion? Commissioner Toronis?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
Great. Was that Commissioner Gall?
Yeah.
Perfect. You just froze and I didn't see you move. Anyway.
It gets that way sometimes.
Yeah. So we have a motion by Commissioner Toronis, a second by Commissioner Gall. Any further discussion? Great. Let's vote.
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Toronis?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt?
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. Okay, moving on to 9D, 1357 Bernal. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
This application is for design review and special permit for building height. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing one-story house to build a new two-story house and detached garage. The total proposed floor area is 3,414 square feet, where 3,420 square feet is the maximum allowed. There will be a total of 4 bedrooms, 2 parking spaces are required, 2 covered spaces are provided in the detached garage, and an uncovered space in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. If there are any questions of staff, I'm available at this time.
Great. Do we have any questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public comment. The applicant, please raise your hand. And state your name and add anything you wish about your project.
Chair Schmidt, the designer Jerry Deal is an attendee. I believe he's having trouble logging on. He's having internet issues. I believe he's on via phone. So, Mr. Deal, if you can hear this, if you dial *9, that should raise your hand, and then it should give you additional instructions on how to use your phone to speak. If that doesn't work, Mr. Deal also submitted a written comment. He asked that staff would read that into the record. So, if Chair Schmidt, if you would like me to do that, I'd be happy to do that. Okay. We also have the property owner, I believe, who is a panelist now, Archimedes Martinez. So he certainly could speak as well.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, I don't know if Mr. Deal is able to get in at this point. Is there anything you wanted to add, or would you rather us just go ahead and hear what Mr. Deal wrote and let Ruben read it?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Archie Martinez. I'll just introduce myself quickly and give a little bit of background on the property. if you wish, myself and my wife, Maria Teresa, bought the property back in 2017. So we've been in the property for 4.5+ years now. Actually, before that, we were at 1361 DeSoto, so for 5 years. So overall, we're close to 10-year residents of the Easton Edition. And this is our dream house. We bought this house with the intention of building this house for our dream house. And we will be living in this house, hopefully for the rest of our lives. So, and we're working with Jerry Deal and Hector Espinoza on this project, knowing that their specialty is craftsman house, which we love very much, and I know fits very well in the neighborhood. That's what we love about the neighborhood, is the look of it and the surrounding environment. So with that, I don't really have anything else, and maybe you can just read what Jerry had wrote. So.
Well, yeah, I think Jerry made it in. I think, Jerry, you're unmuted and you can speak if you'd like. Maybe. Oh, he just muted himself. There you go, Jerry.
Have I got it?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, hold on just a second. I gotta get it back to Zoom. Okay, am I on?
Yes. You're on.
I can barely hear you.
I can hear you.
I can barely hear you.
Well, I would say go ahead and say what you're going to say, or we can let Ruben read what you said already.
Okay, well, let me ask a question. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I designed this house for Archie and Marie Martinez, and 1357 Bernal. And it's a little difficult project because it's on a high hill. Not too many of those in Burlingame, but it's there. The original house was only 1 story, but the Archie and Maria wanted a 2-story home. And they wanted that home to be a style that would complement the original house. They didn't want something completely new. So I'd like to answer some questions regarding the design, but first I want to discuss the special permit for height first. The existing first floor of that house is 113.87 feet, and it's got a fairly good sized basement underneath it. And we are going to eliminate all of that and move the house down to the first floor finished floor of 110.5 feet. And we've attempted to push that down as far as we can, but there's only so far you can go with once we've backed up the property. The original house is too far forward. We backed it up a little bit on the property, so it adhered to the setback. And one of the reasons we did not put a set of stairs inside the first floor, for instance, maybe the rear part of the house up maybe 2 or 3 risers. I didn't want to do that. It creates a very big problem, 2 to 3 steps, and then you got to do it on the second floor also. So we didn't do that. But having a second floor height of 35 feet 2 inches means that we need a special permit. And the property does have a large upslope of 10 feet as measured from the average top of curb to the finished floor. So it wasn't possible to lower it much further. With regard to the special permit for the height of 5 foot 2 inches, which is above the 30-foot height, I feel this project is approvable for the following reasons. The new residence is architecturally compatible with the neighborhood, and also the new residence is well integrated into this neighborhood. The owners currently live in Switzerland, but will be retiring to Burlingame when this house is finished. Their son was also involved in the design, since he will be inheriting the house someday. As a note, this is not a spec project. So any questions?
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Deal at this time? Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, Jerry, hopefully you can hear me. But my only question is in regards to the front porch.
Okay.
It seems a little monumental. The rear porch, you've disengaged the eaves so that they're not having to align the gutters, with the house behind. The rear porch, it seems a little monumental, looks a little like something from in Tahoe, but which maybe is okay. It's a rear porch, but in looking at the front, it's a tall house. It's, you got the special permit for height. It's raised up above street level. Is it possible to disengage that front gable and maybe bring that height down a little bit, just so that it feels a little bit more like it's approaching the street some? Or
Okay, you're talking about the gable at the porch?
Yeah, the front porch and the two pairs of columns on either side. Is it possible to?
Okay, is your comment that if it were, say, 1.5 feet lower, that it would look better?
Yeah, I think so. What do you think?
Well, there's a matter of personal preference, but I don't mind moving it down 1.5 feet.
Okay. I think the reason where I'm coming from again is because you're already raised up from the street. So I feel like I'm yelling, but I
understand.
Anyway,
well,
you're raised up from the street
I appreciate it.
Raised up from the street so high already, and then it just feels a little monumental. So if you could take a look at that, I'd appreciate it. So that's all.
Oh, definitely will.
Thank you.
Okay, unless we have any other questions, then we'll go ahead and move to the attendees and see.
I had
if
a
there's
quick
anybody-
question.
Oh,
Chair
here we go.
Schmidt.
Commissioner Say.
Yes. Hi, Jerry.
Yes.
Just a quick question on the house to the right is quite tall. And also up high, high grade. Is your first floor plate height relatively in line with that neighbor's first floor plate height?
Let me look at this. I've got the elevations right here. It would appear that their first floor plate height is, I'd say, about 1.5 feet, maybe taller. Not an awful lot, maybe 1.5 feet.
You think the right-hand neighbor's first floor plate height is 1.5 feet taller than your proposed first floor plate height, like 10?
Yeah, I'm looking at the elevations. It could be 2 feet, but it's not great, but it's there.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the elevations right now.
The elevations that we see?
No, I'm looking at the elevations from Google
from the
Maps,
survey.
and I've got the two houses on Google Maps. I'm looking
Okay.
at their elevations.
Yeah. And just because we don't see an outline of the neighbors. I mean, I know that the house on the right is very tall, so that would seem to be relatable to this house.
Yeah.
I was just curious how, and the one on the left, I think, is low or lower, or 1 story, if I remember.
It's 1 story, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, just wanted to understand its relationship to the neighbor, your plate height.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Looks like we have 1 person from the public. Ms. Pfaff?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Jerry. I think this is really well done. I think it's beautiful. And my only comment was the same as Commissioner Toronis. It just looked kind of way too high, and the looked very, with the pillars and everything, looked very monumental. So I think it'd be great if you could lower that.
Okay.
I will do that for you.
Okay.
Hey.
Chopped liver over there.
Yes.
Anyway, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And do we have further comments from the commissioners? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action. Just by way of comment, I can make the findings for the special permit. We do have some unique circumstances, but I don't think that the project will be detrimental to its neighbors, so I could make those findings. So I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
I'll second that motion.
Great. We have a motion by Commissioner Toronis and a second by Commissioner Say. Any further comment? Okay, great. Let's vote.
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Toronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Loftus,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0-0-0. And that concludes our design review study area. Moving on to item number 10, Commissioners' reports. Do we have any this evening? Seeing none, we're moving on to Directors' reports. Looks like we have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, just an update on the last City Council meeting on January 3rd. The City Council appointed Jennifer Pfaff as the new Planning Commissioner to take over former Commissioner Ray Larios' seat. We're expecting January 24th, which is the next meeting, or February 14th to be Commissioner Pfaff's first meeting with the Planning Commission. She needs to be sworn in, so we're working on that. And the only other item I had was with regards to the new zoning ordinance. Which of you all want hard copies of the zoning ordinance? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Everybody but Will and John. Okay. So if you have any of the old binders or old materials, if you could return those to us. If you have them, if you've tossed them or recycled them, that's okay too. But if you've got them, if you can return them with your packets, that would be appreciated. We could certainly use those binders. But I'll go ahead and prepare those for you all and provide them to you with the next packet. There are no FYIs tonight, so that's all I had. And the next Planning Commission meeting is on January 24th, 2 weeks from tonight.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, with that, I think we're ready to adjourn at 10:01 p.m. Thank you for everybody who attended and is still with us this evening. And thank you to the commission.
Good night,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thank you. Welcome, Jennifer.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
So excited. Bye.
Bye.